you shared earlier was very compelling. There's other policies that we can put in place that I'm working on currently at the City Council, at the City of Santa Cruz, and that's fast-tracking 100% affordable housing. There's a lot of other strategies, but I'm going to get to an important piece here, and that's resources. So in order for us to be able to build affordable housing, we need to bring in resources and increase our housing trust fund dollars. I know that the county right now has a TOT tax that we'll be voting on next Tuesday. And so I would support that, and I would make sure that we allocate revenues towards affordable housing, and that I would also support a housing bond. I did not answer your other question just yet. I would work with organizations such as COPA and other nonprofits to make sure that you have the resources to put in the strategies that we'll co-create together. The council and the Board of Supervisors recently did this, but it's a drop in the bucket, and I know more resources are needed. So I'd make sure that we allocate those resources to nonprofit organizations. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Justin Cummings, and this is a personal issue for me because as someone who has 2 bachelors in Spanish and biology, and a PhD in ecology and evolutionary biology, and who works in environmental science in this community, I'm a renter, and I can barely afford to live here. And I know that's the story of many of our essential workers, and I'm the only candidate who is a renter who's running for district supervisor. And I think that when we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, we need to have voices of renters represented in our local government. Housing is a racial, social, and environmental justice issue, but most importantly, it's a human right. I don't believe that all housing is good housing because much of the housing that's being built that is market rate is inaccessible to our essential workers, which is why I have consistently pushed for maximizing affordable housing in market rate projects. As a city council member, I've worked to increase our inclusionary affordable housing percentage in new developments from 15 to 20%. And as county supervisor, I will do the same, because currently the affordable housing inclusionary percentage is at 15%, and I want to move it up to 20, if not more, especially for those projects that receive density bonuses, which allow for more market rate housing. In addition to that, I want to advocate for more funding from the state, because without the funding, we can't build the housing. But I want to move on to the other issue as well. In 2018, I ran as one of 2 pro-rent control candidates. I worked on rent control because at the time, I didn't feel like our government was doing much for renters, and I believe that we need people who are going to fight and stand up for renters in our community. I've consistently supported tenant protections. I helped fund this tenant sanctuary, and continue to push for eviction protections in our community. And I've actually worked with COPA many times to promote and push for eviction protections, because we know that once people become homeless, it's very difficult to get them back into housing. These are things that I've had a consistent track record on as a city council member, and as mayor, and as county supervisor. I want to continue this work with COPA as well. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us. I actually have 2 friends right now who are being evicted by the end of June. And I'm desperately trying to find some rental or space for someone to even park their car to live in. So if you know of anything, please let me know. In terms of housing and low-income housing in District 3, our need is very low-income and low-income housing at this time. There's plenty of market rate housing going up right now. And so I think that what we need to do is look at county land, which is incredibly valuable land, and the reason that housing is so costly here, and to build affordable housing on that county land. We need to use our land, like the parking lot at Ocean Street, and also a parcel over by the Emeline Complex. We can pass a bond measure to get that done relatively quickly. We can also use pension funding to create workforce housing. I see I've got just a minute. I want to add that I'm the only candidate that I know that hasn't accepted real estate PAC money in this election, and no developer money. I think I'm one of 2 that hasn't accepted developer money. And I think that's important. Besides what we say, is who's expecting what from us. And so in terms of renter protections, I think we need to make sure that our candidate and our supervisor is someone who's going to be free of pressures from landlords and real estate companies to be able to enact renter protections like the ones that I talked to you all about in our interview. And I agree with everything that you have said and proposed. In fact, it was something that we talked about in our interview was having either no application fee or one single application in a housing database so that landlords and tenants can meet each other this way with one fee, and also tenants are not fleeced in tenant fraud schemes that happen all the time here. I've heard of people who've lost $2,000 to $10,000 and not even gotten a house. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace. Now I'd like to introduce Elizabeth Schilling, who will speak to our healthcare and mental health agenda.
I'm Elizabeth Schilling. I'm a COPA leader here at Peace United Church of Christ. I remember the first time I heard a hardly believable story about a fellow congregant's mental health crisis. It was in a building at this church. She told our small group about how her daughter had just had a mental breakdown and how inadequate services had been. That story was one which launched COPA into house meetings about mental health within our various institutions across the county. The experiences shared in our institutions verified a severe shortage of mental health beds and also gaps in Medi-Cal services. My friend and my congregation are now alone in wanting something better. In recent years, we have taken research actions in COPA and learned about funding streams for mental health and how our clinics and how the commercial healthcare providers in Santa Cruz do and do not work together to serve our community. We learned that a county agreement called the Access to Care is the vehicle by which mental health services, specialized Medi-Cal, and care for the uninsured is managed. That agreement is being updated now. Our teams had dozens of meetings with state and county officials and directors of commercial health organizations and learned that Kaiser's expansion into Santa Cruz County has put negotiations in a tailspin because they do not want to be accountable under that county agreement. COPA met several times with Kaiser and proposed they could increase resources or add mental health beds or services and help bridge the gaps in our county's healthcare systems. Because Kaiser is challenging the order and the security of care, the other providers are potentially retreating on their agreements around Medi-Cal and mental health, too, now. The fragile web of existing healthcare system is now threatened further, and Norma Ramirez will share her story to illustrate that.
Hi, my name is Norma Ramirez, promotora and a COPA leader with the Santa Cruz Community Health. I am a mother of 2 children, a 7 and a 2-year-old. My oldest son has autism, ADHD, and global development disorder. My husband is the main provider of our household, and I stay home to take care for my children. I do not have transportation, and it is very stressful to get to appointments for our health. I suffer from anxiety. It gets worse when my children are going through crisis. In moments like this, I am often reminded of my mother. My mother went through a similar situation with my autistic brother. Unfortunately, she was unable to receive proper help. She took her life. It is important that we talk about these experiences and help each other get help. I've tried to receive services, but I had to wait a long time to be seen. I wish more access was available. And in my work as a promotora, I know of many other health needs of those on Medi-Cal. Especially some cases where special care is needed. The clinic has been a good resource, but is more needed. We need more counselors, more places for. for people who have emergencies, mental and physical health. Thank you.
Now for our question to the candidates. COPA wants a just healthcare system which guarantees good services for all, including those who earn the least among us. Also, our members have nearly unlimited stories about the need for mental health support. If elected, you will have an important role in updating the county's Access to Care Agreement. What are your most important priorities in negotiating that agreement? And will you work with COPA to ensure that each healthcare provider, including Kaiser, agree to serve their fair share of Medi-Cal patients and increase mental health services? You will each have 2 minutes for your answer, and we will begin with candidate Chen Mills, followed by candidates Kalahari Johnson and then candidate Cummings.
Thank you so much. I'm someone who's worked in the mental health field for about 25 years, teaching principles of mental health in large groups and in county jails and juvenile hall and sober living environments. And I've also been someone who's been in the troughs of being a mental health client myself. We all go through things, and I'm actually a Kaiser member. And what I understand about Kaiser is that I've been to the counselor at Kaiser for mental health, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I think we all need to be talking about these things because we're just all human. In terms of Kaiser, my understanding and what I would want from them is to make sure that they have enough mental health counselors, because this is an ongoing perennial issue for Kaiser. We've seen strikes all over the state and in other states from mental health counselors saying we don't have enough. So we want to make sure that they're providing enough mental health counseling. We have leverage with Kaiser because Kaiser is trying to build a facility here and going to the Board of Supervisors to get that done. So we need to use that leverage along with negotiating this particular contract to make sure that they are accountable to our community and to the percentage of need that they need to fill for us mental health-wise. So I'm interested in what can they do service-wise. Also, I'm interested in mobile mental health response, because some people have a hard time getting to a clinic, and this is a way that we can serve people who are unhoused. I think that's doable, and I think we need to ask them to please do this. We also need psychiatric beds. It's one of our greatest needs in the county. Can they help to provide psychiatric beds? Can they help the Watsonville Community Hospital be funded, remain funded? That's a super important issue for our county as well. And so let me check my notes to see what else I had. Also, Spanish-speaking services and Spanish translation services and other language translation services are something that we need in this county from Kaiser and the other providers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I have a master's in social work with an emphasis on public policy and mental health, so this is an issue that's very near and dear to me. I've worked on it for a number of years, and here in this community, I've served on the Central California Alliance for Health and the community. I continue to serve on the Central California Alliance for Health and Community Health Trust, and that is what they work on, these organizations, is access to care. There's several moving pieces and parts right now that will impact our community. I'll just speak to some of them. What you mentioned, Elizabeth, AB 2724, which is the medical alternative healthcare service plan, that is a threat to our community. That's essentially saying that we are going to prioritize public entities, commercial entities over public entities such as the Alliance. So I'm actively working as an Alliance Commissioner to oppose that bill. Should that bill pass, I will work with Kaiser and I will work with all of the organizations, the healthcare providers, Santa Cruz Community Health Centers, to ensure that that Kaiser and all entities take their share of Medi-Cal patients. The other moving piece is CalAIM and the implementation of CalAIM at the state of California and at the county level. We're just rolling this out. As a supervisor, I've already inquired about this, but as a supervisor, I would make sure that we have a team in place that has thought through how that will change our healthcare plans. It'll include whole person care, population health management, enhanced care management, and behavioral health. The other piece is Power Valley Hospital District that was just formed. Making sure that we have adequate funds by the end of August to purchase those. I'm actively working on that now. Putting in place a sustainability plan, and then making that sustainability plan robust so that we are providing behavioral health services in that new hospital. And then the last piece I'll say is our behavioral health department has brought in upwards of $9 million. That's a drop in the bucket. I would support those efforts and make sure that we work with our state representatives to bring in more funds.
So the Access to Medical Care Agreement offers charitable or affordable quality health care for low-income residents. I'm aware that this agreement is out of date, and the board will be reviewing it this December. As supervisor, I will review this agreement carefully and support including medical services to low-income residents, especially mental health care. This agreement is updated annually, and not only would I be actively involved in reviewing this, but would like to work with COPA and our Health Services Agency to ensure we're working in collaboration towards providing access to health care for all of our community. As supervisor in this agreement, I would encourage and support increasing enrollment in Medi-Cal, increasing services identified in the health needs assessment, require an agreement with Kaiser for proposed new facilities to include significant community benefits, including but not limited to funding uncompensated costs of the county's MedCruise program for uninsured individuals, funding uncompensated costs of the county's inpatient adult and adolescent psychiatry, contracted services including housing, shelter, recuperative care for persons experiencing homelessness, diversion programs, alternative facilities, or other efforts that alleviate emergency department demand, and assistance with the community acquisition of the Watsonville Community Hospital to ensure access to care for Power Valley residents. In addition to this agreement, I've been hearing a lot from the community that we want alternatives to police responding to calls for behavioral and mental health. As a county supervisor, as a city council member, I've been pushing the city council to move towards efforts to develop a 24/7 911 enforcement crisis response. I've also been working on the Criminal Justice Council with Chairman and County Supervisor Zach Friend. We're currently conducting a study to look at how many calls are coming in around behavioral and mental health at the county level. And as county supervisor, I will continue to work on these efforts to make sure that we're creating new programs that respond to calls for mental and behavioral health that aren't police officers. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We are on our final question. But before we do, I want to say that democracy is only as healthy as when we practice those muscles of civic participation, like you are doing right now. So I want you to applaud yourselves for coming out tonight. I want to thank those who are participating via Zoom and thank our team who's recording this. In COPA, politics is healthy because it begins with a small group conversation where we take time and space to really listen to each other. Across class, across race, across creed, belief. This is how we practice democracy within COPA, with the small group conversation where we share the stories of our lived experiences like you heard tonight, and out of that arises solutions and ideas for how to address those pressures. And out of those conversations arise the leaders who participate in public life, as you saw tonight. So, as I prepare for this next question, it is about inviting our participation as organized people to participate in relationship with our elected officials who we are about to decide upon next Tuesday afternoon, next Tuesday. When I asked that first question about if you candidates would help us to develop a tenant support strategy, the answers were a little murky for some of you, so I'm going to give you another shot at it. Not shot, sorry. We've got to learn how to edit our vocabulary. Well, I will give you another opportunity to respond to this question of working with COPA. So here's the question, candidates, and you have 90 seconds to respond, each of you. Will you commit today to participating in these house meetings or small group conversations with our COPA families so that you can hear firsthand of their stories and struggles and ideas for change? Starting this summer, that's the first part. The second part of the question, and will you meet with both our housing strategy team and our healthcare strategy team in the fall to develop our proposals into an action agenda that you can introduce to the Board of Supervisors when you take office come January? I'll begin with candidate Justin Cummings.
Great. Well, thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you all for having us. And I'd just like to say that yes, I am committed to working with COPA on their housing and healthcare strategies. And I say this as someone who, as a mayor, when we were going through one of our most challenging year in our community's history, COPA reached out to me, and I worked consistently with COPA. I heard the concerns that were coming from members of the community. Voy a tomar esa oportunidad también para decir que soy fluente también en español y podía hablar también con la gente latina en nuestra comunidad, y lo que ellos me dijeron durante esa temporada es que estaban muy orgullosos y les gustaba mucho que podían hablar con su representante. I think that having that this is something that I offer, that I'm the only candidate that's fluent in Spanish. But I just want to say that for 4 years, I've been working on tenant protections and tenants' rights, and I know that this is something that's very important to COPA, and I want to continue to help represent the needs of the people who you represent. Again, as I said before, I am a renter, and so I know this struggle firsthand, and I know that without good tenant protections in place, we will lose the foundation of our community, which is our essential workers and the people who we depend on every day, whether they're teachers, grocery store workers, people who clean our hotels, police officers, firemen, city and county workers. This is what we hear, and this is what we need, and I want to help represent the voice of the people we need in our community. Thank you.
He's tall. I just want to say that when I was first invited to come to this forum, I actually suggested, because I knew something about relational power was going on, and I suggested maybe we could do it another way, not these 2-minute answers, you know, in this big forum where we're kind of debating, because I know that there's a deeper way to communicate with one another. And that actually happened in the interviews that we did, at least for me it happened in the interviews we did with, I had Barbara, Ruben, and Dana in my interview before this, and I really believe that's where solutions arise. I had ideas that I've even gotten from local landlords who are willing and wanting to help out because we are now in a community crisis/emergency situation with our workforce, with our essential workers, as Justin said, and with teachers, with nurses, with everybody. And so I really want to make sure that we have those conversations. So I'm a yes to both of these questions, and I'm a solid yes to both of these questions. Also because of the way that I understand you all to work. That is the way that I would like to be working, and it's the way that is most natural for me to be working. People expect us as candidates to have every policy formulated, and we do our best. But I know that when we hit the ground in January, it's going to be a lot of moving parts and pieces, and a lot of resistance, and a lot of forces up against some of these policies. So I'm going to need you to help me out, and thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, you get 3 for 3. I'm an absolute yes as well. We've started the conversations, and there's a lot more to discuss. I will say, as someone who's done community organizing in this community and done facilitation, it takes working across the county, across sectors to address these very complex issues. I don't have all the answers. none of each of you as individuals have all the answers, but together we can co-create solutions where we can produce results. I've done this around youth homelessness, I've done this around substance abuse prevention for youth, I've done this for affordable affordable childcare, and around healthcare. And I know that it takes all of us to create solutions and strategies that will work for our community. So I invite that opportunity for us to produce results together. Thank you.
Thank you candidates for your answers and your participation. I'll turn the meeting back to our co-chairs.
Thank you, Barbara. Well, let's just review for a moment what we did tonight, what happened here. We heard stories from our community, and we shared them with all our candidates here, and we know that I could hear it, I could feel it. There's power in our stories. The vulnerability and the honesty that was shared this evening is powerful and important. And we just received a number of public commitments from our candidates. Part of why we do this work, and part of why we do it in a public sphere, is to hold our candidates accountable. We want to hold our elected officials accountable. We got agreements, we got promises, we got, I would say, vows, because I'm using religious language, because I'm a rabbi, but we are now empowered to hold each one accountable to what we just heard tonight. And we know, again, our democracy is threatened, and so tonight we are acting upon our democratic rights. Give yourselves a round of applause. So in saying yes to these issues, more importantly, the candidates each agreed that they're going to attend House meetings with our leaders, a public commitment to work with us on these critical issues. And so, round of applause, please.
Gracias. Solo tengo un recordatorio y una invitación para este junio 7 a que salgan a ejercer el voto, y los que no lo han hecho, por favor. Bueno, después de las respuestas que acabamos de escuchar de los candidatos y las historias impactantes de nuestros compañeros líderes, ¿cuál es nuestra responsabilidad ahora? Si queremos ver el cambio, entonces los invito a que participen, como acabo de decir, a ejercer su derecho al voto. Ahora, si puedes tú votar, por favor, sal a votar. Si no puedes votar, lo que escuchaste hoy, te invito a que compartas con la persona que pueda votar tu experiencia de hoy. También, en especial, invitar y animar a nuestros jóvenes a que usen su poder del derecho al voto. Tenemos mucho trabajo que hacer juntos, y así, si alguno de los candidatos aquí presentes va a ser electo, podremos exigir y pueda rendir cuentas de los compromisos que nos hicieron hoy. Gracias.
Now is our turn. We have to build upon what we've accomplished this evening. COPA leaders, here's the work ahead. Take out your commitment cards now, and there's some engagement choices on these cards. And we want to ask you to please indicate what next steps you would like to take with COPA. Now, some of you may need some time to reflect on how you'd like to engage if you're new to this kind of organizing, but we hope that you'll make a choice, and maybe even all of the choices. So first, on June 13th, we will have a strategy session to plan our House meeting campaign for the summer. And this is going to be an opportunity for both new and long-term leaders to be able to work together, get to know each other from different institutions, and to build our collective power. Secondly, we also encourage you to be part of a house meeting about housing and/or healthcare access, including mental health care. And here's what COPA does in our house meetings, so you know. To solve the problems that we've discussed this evening, we need more conversations with others in our congregations, with tenants and landlords together, with people maybe even who hold different perspectives. So we want to have a number of house meetings over the summer and fall and invite these candidates, whoever wins, or will be in a runoff election, to come to our meetings, to our house meetings, to learn for themselves the reality of what we've been hearing about. Please, raise your hand if you're willing to commit to attending the June 13th organizing meeting. Now I want to ask you to raise your hand if you would like to be part of a house meeting. Yes. All right. And I see the floor team is already getting ready to collect the commitment cards. Thank you so much. One more thing I want to mention, if you're interested in getting more involved in COPA, we want to invite you to our COPA Santa Cruz team that meets every Monday at 6:30 on Zoom. So you're going to find the Zoom link, you'll see it on your agenda that you received this evening, and you are also, after we conclude our meeting tonight, invited to join us for a brief evaluation. I'd like to invite Pastor Gabriel House to come forward with a reflection to close out our meeting. Thank you, Pastor Gabriel.
Thank you. I'd first like to express my appreciation to all of our presenters with their stories this evening, to our candidates for taking time to be here, and to everyone who skipped the soccer game to make time for us tonight. Your commitment is shown through your attendance, through your compassion, your care. Now I invite you to lift your hearts together with me as we do a closing prayer. O God, as you anointed leaders and called prophets of old, lead us to recognize our true representatives today. Authentic leaders who love your people and are willing to walk with them, who feel their pain and share their joys, who dream their dreams and strive to accompany them to their common goal. In your fire, with your spirit, embolden and commission us to transform our political system to serve your people. And now, Lord, grant that what we have said with our lips, we may believe in our hearts, and that what we believe in our hearts, we may practice in our lives. Amen.
Again, I want to thank you all for coming. This meeting is now adjourned.